Great, excited to be doing our LinkedIn Live, our second one. When did we start? Since last month. So thank you everyone who is joining or is watching, if you're watching the replay. My name is Jēnna Reese. I'm the founder and CEO of Connect Centric, and we are going to be talking about making digital transformation a reality. And today I have an expert in this field, Leon Fowler, and I'm gonna pass over to him shortly for him to do his intros. I'm really excited about today's topic because, right, we're about to be in December. Everyone should be well past budgeting and looking at what we're going to be doing or what your organization is going to be doing in 2024. And obviously, everyone's strategic plan has quite a number of line items around transformation, whether that's AI related or strategic related with new technology, improvements. And so we're going to be talking about a number of different things today over the next 45 minutes. And I'm excited to share and learn from you, Leon. So we'll love for you to share more about who you are, your expertise, and what you're most looking forward to during our conversation today.
Sure. Well, thank you. My name is Leon Fowler. I'm a senior business analyst with Connect Centric. I have over 15 years of experience as a systems analyst, as a business analyst for multiple large companies, implementing software, enhancing software, training individuals, and overall support. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share my experiences in seeing how digital transformation has happened with different organizations that I've worked with and talking with you. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in because we have, again, a certain amount of time, and I want to make sure we are able to cover all the questions that I have for you. So we'll kind of jump right in. I'm one person who, I think many people see digital transformation as this big bucket, right? I mean, it's obviously very lofty. It can encompass many different things. It's obviously now a big buzzword and can sometimes feel very overwhelming when you just say digital transformation. Tell me more and really give me your insight on how do you recommend that organizations take that journey as they look into their strategy in 2024 and what they're going to be doing around digital transformation. I always talk about how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. How do you recommend that organizations begin their journey or continue on their journey within that transformation realm?
Right. So from my experience, what I've seen organizations do successfully is not try to just take on new technology just because it's digital transformation. You're like, okay, let me try this new software. Let me try to do X, Y, and Z. It's actually taking the time to look at your current processes. Try to find out incrementally where you can make some small changes that eventually grow into, okay, here's a system that can better support or automate a manual process that someone's been doing for ages. I think if you look at it from a leadership standpoint, it's whenever they decide this is how we're going to look at these individual processes and across the enterprise, look at each business unit and just try to go down the line and understand how people are doing their daily work and identify processes that are there, because you don't want to miss out on any and you want to capture the ones that can make a big impact enterprise-wide with your company. So starting from the team level, understanding how individuals are doing their work, and then look at all the different processes and see where you can make some adjustments.
Yeah, that's a great point you're making. And I always think about this big bang approach. I think a lot of times we expect this big change when, to your point, it's really a collection of small incremental steps, agile, right, that leads to that bigger change. And so, touching on that point you made about process, right, because that is obviously I think probably the most significant part of a digital transformation is that ability to improve on the processes that have been in place maybe 10, 15 years. What would that look like in your expertise in terms of identifying those processes that need to be really reconsidered to help propel the organization forward as they look at some of these activities?
What's unique is understanding what a process is. Some people may not associate there's steps that they do as soon as they walk into the office as a process. But in reality, almost everything you do from the time you come into the office and open up your computer and start working, there's a process associated to it. You just may have been doing it for so long that this is just what I standardly, what I do on a daily. So when you start looking at different processes, you're going to find some that you didn't know, someone was doing manually. It's a manual process someone does every day. There's situations where you'll see where people have been, doing these daily tasks, and they need to be assigned or at least identified as a process that could potentially be improved. If you don't, and if you kind of skip that level, you'll find out in your project plan as you're working through the details that you may have missed something. And it's better to catch that early on instead of after the fact. And if you don't take the time to look at those individual processes and look at, even at a micro level, things that people do on a daily basis, then you're at risk of having to circle back after implementation to address some needs that are, sometimes critical.
Yeah, and that's it. Kind of lends me to that point when we were prepping for this around those legacy processes, right? So,
Right.
it's almost like you've been doing something for so long, it's just second nature, so you don't even think about it anymore. And so when you start having these conversations with your team, with the business, to say, okay, what are your processes, right? A very big word. It can mean many different things. How do you make sure that someone isn't missing something because it just is so natural or second nature that they don't even consider that something they need to either bring up, or maybe they even forget that that's something that they do kind of naturally?
I think it takes a leadership mentality to say, listen, we need to understand everything you're doing, but a reassurance that if we make an adjustment in your manual process or your traditional things that you've been doing, it's not going to, we're not going to, you're not going to get laid off or anything like that. Listen, we just want to improve your situation. I think a lot of people I've seen, they'll hold on to a traditional thing. This is what I do. I do this every day. It's a manual thing. I've been doing this for the past 10 years. And they might get fearful that if this process is automated, if this changes, then I may not have any work to do. And that is a reality for a lot of people. And so I think that reassurance from the leadership that looking at this with a different mindset of we're just improving your current processes. This isn't just to move you out of the way. It's we want to improve processes across the enterprise. And it takes these small steps that you're currently doing or executing daily that will make a larger impact. And so I think that reassurance will definitely help in finding those small processes that you may not be aware of or that someone's holding on to. Because if something's tradition and they've been doing it for years, they're more reluctant to, hand that off or, feel like someone else to let it go. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, that's true. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. I come in every day. I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. What does my role look like if I'm not doing this? And I love that point about the reassurance, because I think we can all agree, everyone who's watching, there's more than enough work to do. I mean, I don't think any organization is like, oh, we don't have enough going on. And so it's almost like making sure your team members understand that you're just reshifting their expertise. You're not taking their expertise out the picture, but just reshifting it to new priorities that are better leveraged to move the organization forward.
And it takes being able to train people in the new technology. It takes an effort from leadership to want to invest in training their staff, especially the ones that have been there, the ones that have given their time and have done these steps for the past however many years, but to help them train to learn new ways of doing the work they've been doing successfully. And like you said, that reassurance that we're gonna help you transition to this new phase and not just leave you behind.
And what have you seen? What are some strategies that leaders, organizations can do to help them modernize those processes without causing that disruption, whether it's people related, process related, or technology related?
I think it's a mental shift. It's a cultural shift, really. Like the leadership, the subject matter experts all have to champion innovation and, you know, being able to, share your ideas and your thoughts, because the person that's doing that manual work probably finds some things tedious, but because it's tedious, they feel like their value is in doing this process every day. And so you want to reassure from leadership, from management level, from different areas, that it's okay to think outside the box. It's okay to have suggestions, and I think that helps bring things to a level where people can now see everything, and it's not people holding it down. So I think the reassurance starts from leadership fostering an environment for them to feel comfortable in sharing. If I don't feel comfortable, if I'm not being reassured that that I'm valued, then I'll be more reluctant.
Yeah, that is so true. And, kind of lends to the next topic is around the automation of manual processes. And we have enough, I think, not only technology, but kind of forward thinking to know how important it is that if we're still doing things manually, that we're probably not using our time efficiently. And so obviously automation, I think, is a really key driver for digital transformations. So could you share more around your insights? How can organizations prioritize which processes to automate? Obviously, if we're thinking about it from the perspective of how to eat elephant, and I don't think we should be eating elephants, but just an analogy, one bite at a time, it can be overwhelming where you get into that kind of that non-starter, because it is such a big ask, a big shift. So how do I prioritize that as a leader to identify and determine where I should start?
I think doing an audit of your current systems, whether they're a manual process, whether it is a technology that you're using, is looking at what systems you currently have, what processes you currently have, and identifying where there's integrations with others. And so that way you're able to look at, okay, if I make an adjustment to one system, it's going to directly affect these three others. And so it allows you to start looking at those processes and prioritizing which ones should come first, which ones are what they call low-hanging fruit, and you can, take care of immediately, and then which ones will take more thought and more understanding of, if this affects multiple business units, we need to take a larger look at it and spend a little bit more time to make sure, we're not interfering with someone else's process by just trying to, here's a process, here's a system, let's automate it, let's change it. But I think it's a necessity over time for you to automate a lot of manual processes. I think one thing that helps is documentation. And that's one area where in school you hear about it all the time. Document, document, document. And then whenever you get into practice, it's less documentation than I think is necessary in order for people to step in and understand what's happening, why this process is important, and what other systems are integrated into this process.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like we actually have our first question from Milton. Thank you for asking in. So one thing he had asked is around training, and I know we're going to be talking a little bit about this later, but let's jump into, I love questions. So I think this is a very interesting topic, and, I have my soapbox moments, everyone out there, but this is a great question around leadership. Should they expect people to work to basically figure it out on their own? Let's say we're implementing new technology or working through process improvement, or should your team members be given that time to get fully up to speed, and that becomes kind of part of their day-to-day responsibilities, is to understand what it is that we're going to be implementing?
One thing I've definitely learned is you should never stop learning. And then an organization that fosters that and encourages learning and training and bettering yourself as an individual, not just an employee, I think they'll have more opportunity to grow and have more people that want to learn. If it's just learn on your own time, on your own dime, people have People have lives outside of work, and work is a place where you should be able to grow as well as provide a service or some your skills to a company. But you also want to be able to learn and grow in areas that not only benefit the individual, the employee, but also the company working for them. So I think an investment into training is extremely important, and from what I've seen, it's a factor in why people stay at companies and why people share, their love for an organization is because they help them grow individually as well as a professional.
And better themselves in their role. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I want to go back to, you were talking about, starting with, and I think you know this about me, Natalie, and I love being a good inventory. I feel as though if you don't know what's happening, you can't make good decisions. If you're saying, hey, we need to make this improvement or we need to make this modification, but you don't know where to start because you haven't looked at your, what applications you're using, what applications are no longer being used. Maybe like you shared earlier, there's a process that has been in place for 10 years and the person that originally put it in is now gone. And it's now like 4 people down the line is just doing it because this is how we've always done it. So could you tell a little more, kind of dig into that a little more around where can an organization start when they start looking at that inventory before they move into actual transformation activities?
Right. I think that's the initial audit that you as an organization should do, is to look at either tools that are out there that help you organize your inventory of your software or systems that you're utilizing, and they can help you identify which systems are integrated or associated to another. So I think it's very important for you to do an audit, to have that understanding of all the systems that we're using, how much they cost, if there's a fee associated to it, what all integrations, data, and system-wise that are there. And I think that's the first step. And once you're able to look at that, you're able to then see where there's duplication of work. I think from what I've seen, a lot of organizations are siloed, and each business unit starts creating solutions for their specific needs, but then you have multiple siloed business units utilizing multiple products to solve the same outcome, the same situation. And so I think it's important to identify what all is being used. Why is it important? And that's where you're going to find, like you mentioned, a process or a system that 10 years ago someone implemented, and that person's gone. And then, 2 or 3 people later, they're just utilizing these steps because that's what's always happened. But nobody understands the reason why or the business benefit, or if there's another solution to this problem. And so that's a major thing to do initially.
Yeah, and how do you know when it's time to do an audit? What is there any? I love this question because it's like, when do you know it's time? It's
right.
What do you recommend?
Now is the right time. Like there's no time like the present. Whenever you're considering digital transformation or automation or things like that, you need to take that first step. One that allows your employees, allows your team to be included in the value add of the systems that they need. Because from a leadership standpoint, you may not understand why a system is important. And if you don't include them now, when you start making decisions down the line and you haven't taken their input, that can lead to a lot of chaos down the line if you haven't considered your end users' use of that software and the reason why. And so that helps you make better decisions down the line.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's spot on. And it lends again to the next thing around culture. I think we can all agree that and I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I think it said at least 75% of digital transformations fail. And a large part of that was because there was not the buy-in that you needed from your team, or the team that was either impacted, the team that was going to be involved with actually implementing it. And so what are some strategies that leaders can use to cultivate a culture that will buy into these huge transformations? And one example is, as you know, there's a lot of organizations, a lot of software, specifically technology, that is sunsetting their on-premise, and they're, basically forcing their customers to migrate to their cloud solution. And so it's almost like we have no other option other than to migrate. How do you, as a leader, make sure that you've had the buy-in that you need to make sure it's a success?
I think that starts from transparency and understanding how your users utilize the different software and getting their input. But I think from a leadership standpoint, that vision has to be set from the leadership standpoint. So that way it fosters managers and team leaders to be the champions of change. If the leaders aren't championing change, then individually they could, be the negative factor in change happening. If there's not buy-in from that leadership, then their team feels it. And if their team feels it, then during the implementation phase, during that testing phase, during everything, every small thing that doesn't work will be amplified, and it will validate their need not to upgrade or not to make a change. But from what I've seen, and recently I had a great example of a project where the subject matter experts and the team leads were the biggest champions I had seen in a project to date that I've worked on. And it made the process and the project timeline go a lot smoother, because it wasn't just the technical leads trying to encourage people like, hey, this is a better solution, this is why we need to do this. It was people that they trust, people that that value their input, championing it themselves. And that allowed, there were some hiccups during the project timeline, but it wasn't a hiccup that turned into something worse. It was, we were able to refocus, get back on track, and complete the project. And that allowed us to be successful in implementing such a major change.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about that technical debt, that's one big piece of it, in terms of, you don't have that buy-in either from leadership. The technical team is pushing for these improvements. And then you get to, I guess I could say this because they're not a customer, like Southwest Airlines, when they had that huge breakdown in December because of their legacy systems. And you do not want to have that. I mean, that is obviously not something that any organization wants. And so, I'm curious, how do you balance that need for staying up to date with your technology, whether it's upgrades, improvements, and obviously bug fixing and so forth, but balancing those needs that need to happen right now with that human element, which is making sure that you're bringing your team along with you during those changes.
Right. When we mention cultural shift, that means we need to start looking at this in a, not in a sequence, but on a regular basis. So we need to do audits regularly, whether that's every 2 years, every few years. When you look at technology, it constantly changes. And dealing with vendor software, they're making updates all the time. So I know some organizations like to stay like a version or two behind the latest version to get the bugs out. But whenever you're looking at not falling too far behind, that requires you to look at your systems, or at least have an audit every few years, to where you're able to identify, are there areas for improvement? Is there a new version out? Do we have a relationship with this vendor? And if you don't, then you can wind up in a situation where that technology is obsolete, or the enhancement now requires your system to be upgraded to a point that's beyond the budget that you've already set for the year. And so I've seen processes be, the can kicked down the road, because to upgrade would require such a major, financial, budget. In order to execute on this, it would take a lot of business units pausing what they're doing or being involved. But if you're constantly staying on top of it at whatever cadence that the organization feels need, then that allows you to not be 10 years behind on obsolete IT or obsolete softwares or systems. It allows you to know what's coming up in the future and see if that's even a potential for you to continue using, or do you need to shift off? That allows that software audit, to stay within the guidelines of the company's vision and not, go from 50 applications to 250 applications over a few years because you stopped looking at you stopped reviewing what you were bringing in. So I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, and so to your point, then let's say you're an organization, you haven't done an audit for a while. Let's say it's been a couple of years. That first push is going to be a little more massive, but once you have it behind you, you're fine. I was at a symposium a few weeks ago for the Food and Drug Administration, absolutely exceptional IT symposium, and they had just done an audit, I think a year and a half ago, and that's when they said that it was a big push, but now that it's done, they had such a clear picture of what they need to do and how it's going to help them leverage that knowledge for the future, because they had obviously a lot of big strategic initiatives that they want to put forth from 2024 to 2027. So if you haven't, so what I want to summarize is, if what you're saying is if you haven't done it yet, just do it, get out the way, because it's not going to get any better. So you might have gone from 50 to 250. You wait another 5 years, you're going to be at 500 or 1,000.
Right. It's extremely important for you to get started, and if you don't, then that number continually grows, and it becomes, a tree that you can't trim the branches, because now it's just completely outgrown your capabilities, and it's going to cost you either now or cost you more in the future.
Mm-hmm. We had another question coming from Milton. So this is around remote working, which is, I think, very good question, especially as we talk about digital transformation, because a lot of organizations are or have put in new technology, new processes, new workflows to support a larger remote workforce. So
Right.
is it worth, from your perspective, having, I think it's that monitoring technology on your team members' computers, so that you know that they're working when they say they are? I have my opinion on this, Leon. I would love to hear yours.
Right. So this is the past few years is the first time that I've worked remotely. So I've, it's very new, but I think it's something that, if tasks are being handled, if there's regular touch points, if you're staying on top of what your team is working on, and if you structure your organization in a way that, I may not be able to talk to Jēnna regularly, but now I have Capria or someone else that I can talk to, throughout the week, and I have those touch points that are a little bit closer to what I'm working on. That allows transparency from both ends. It allows organizations to see that you are working, that you are accomplishing tasks. It allows you to know that your company values what you do, and they want to see that you're constantly finding ways to assist the business to be a good representation of their organization if you're a contractor working somewhere else or anything like that. So monitoring software may be intrusive. I feel like it could potentially be could be trouble. I mean, I don't know for sure the software that's out there, but I think micromanaging, even working in office, is not a great idea. I think if you always feel like someone's like looking over your shoulder, it I think it stifles, outside the box thinking, innovation. You feel like you always have to, um, I feel like it's not conducive to a great working environment. And in times like this where individuals change jobs so regularly, you want to have an environment that people want to be at, that people feel comfortable with, that they know if something comes up, I can do what I need to do as long as I'm getting my work done, as long as I'm getting tasks handled, and that my company is finding value in what I'm bringing.
100% meeting those expectations. And this all ties into our concept of making digital transformation a reality because, and this is my soapbox, is trust is the most important thing you can do. One of my closest friends is actually an expert on trust. Go check out his book, Bold New You. But the point I'm trying to make is if a person is in your organization and doesn't not feel valued and does not feel trust, or that you trust them, or that there's any of this level of trust between them and the organization, they're going to be looking, they're not going to be fulfilled, because at the core of who we are as human beings is that need to feel valued and that need to feel trust and to build relationships built on trust. So I definitely don't recommend that. I understand a lot of organizations that do it for many different reasons. But if your reason for getting people back into the office is because you're worried they're not getting their work done, I think you would have that same problem even if they are in the office. That comes down to what we talked about a little earlier, which is a culture. And so what is the culture of your organization? And from the top down, when you have leaders, and we see this every day, leaders that trust the members of their team, whether it's their direct reports or their managers, they do better work. And that is, I think, just a function of that trusting relationship and wanting to meet that trust that someone has put into you.
Definitely agree with you.
Yeah, great question, Milton. Really great question. And so when we talk about this transformation, I know we have a few minutes to so many more topics and questions I want to cover.
Right.
I want to talk about future proofing. This is a big one because technology continues. I feel like 10 years ago, technology was moving quicker, and it's almost like every year exponentially now, obviously AI, specifically generative AI, ChatGPT, Grok, I guess, Twitter or X is coming out with Grok, or has come with Grok. But it's almost like what's happening is a lot of organizations are starting to let technology, I say, like take them on the ride versus almost like reining that in and being a little more, not just riding the wave of AI and letting it like letting AI take them for the ride. So what can organizations do to future-proof their digital transformation efforts? I put something in place tomorrow, literally in 3 months is already out to date, right? It's already outdated. What can organizations do to stay relevant in this very exponentially increasing technology landscape?
I think looking at, from what I've seen from organizations, and the current one I'm working with is coming up with a strategy around new technology, around AI, around these systems that are changing, like you said, month to month. I think I heard about ChatGPT in November, and by the time I got my hands on it in December, everyone got their hands on it. Before you know it, there's all types of AI being used in almost every software that's out there. And so where you may not be on top of every individual change, if you have a strategy around innovation, strategy around how we handle this as an organization, that allows you to be forward thinking, but stay within your vision of your company, the growth that you want to make as a company, to where you're not just jumping on the bandwagon of any new software tool out there without having a plan and a strategy in place, because users are going to hear about it. Users are going to want to test it. But if there's no strategy, you're going to accelerate that systems audit with more and more software that everyone's utilizing, excuse me, and not have sound control over, if we're going to move this way, this is how as an organization we'll move forward with this type of technology, with this type of AI. I think that becomes how organizations can future-proof themselves, by knowing that technology is going to change, software is going to be enhanced. There might be some better software out there, but having that strategy of looking into the future, but not drastically making changes until strategically as an organization, we agree to how we're going to move forward. That has to be implemented, I believe, in most organizations. And if you're not forward thinking when it comes to technology, then within 6 months, you can find yourself behind or having that siloed situation where business units are just, doing solutions that help them right then and there. And before you know it, that tree with all the branches that just expanded.
That shadow IT, they call it.
Exactly. So strategies, putting those strategies in place and knowing that that's going to play a part with new technology coming, and just that forward thinking is key, I believe.
Yeah, and I've said this a couple times now around, for the longest time, I think since forever, until I guess probably the last couple years, it was the business making technology decisions. We need this technology to support this business process. But what we're seeing is this shift where technology is now making business decisions. And I think we're starting to see a lot of, not even churn, but I don't even want to say confusion either, but there's something under the surface that I'm starting to see in organizations that it's showcasing that shift, and it's not a comfortable feeling for a lot of people. It's almost like nowadays the CEO needs to have such a extensive understanding of technology, because that is what the future holds. I mean, there's so much expectation around organizations providing the solution or service when, where, and how the consumer wants it. And so organizations that are still thinking, oh, well, this manual way we've been doing this, or this in-person piece of paper, or whatever that might be that we want to, send out, is not going to work anymore, because now the next generation, for sure. I mean, I think about my niece and nephews, they're not writing anything down on paper. They're on their phones, and they're not even typing anymore. They're talking into the phones, which for me is already like a big shift. So
yeah, you have to, I use this analogy when I talk about technology and different things like that. If you're not constantly open to change and evolution in your organization's strategy, especially technology wise, there's a software called MySpace that used to exist as the standard, and it never changed. And then Facebook and all these other platforms came around that constantly changed. And I know users are like, hey, Facebook updated again, or this, that, and the other. But that was a perfect example of something that worked, that was great for its time period. But because it never evolved, it never changed, it stayed the same, before you know it, the ones that did are the ones that are still around. And so that's a huge callback to an example of, you have to be able to be open to technology, no matter from the executive level on down, is know at least a little bit, because people are going to want to see something change, and just traditional ways of doing business could leave you behind your competitors.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And one thing I'm starting to see a shift in, and I think other countries outside the US have already been doing this, but like WhatsApp. I mean, you're creating, there are channels now in WhatsApp that, they're starting to do more business focused communications through WhatsApp, and consumers are starting to really push for that. I mean, even I think about your desktop computer. I mean, it's going to eventually be obsolete. Like, everything is going to be on your phone or on some sort of mobile device. And so those sort of things organizations have to be thinking about, because I don't even want to get into once Gen Alphas enter the workforce. I mean, it's going to be like, right. I don't even know. Hopefully I'm retired by then, and I'm 40 now, but oh my gosh, I just cannot imagine what that's going to look like.
Yeah, it's going to constantly change. And you see all we grew up with Star Trek and Star Wars and all these like gadgets that they were using. We're literally using many of them today. And it's unique to see, even though we're not, everyone's in flying cars and this, that, and the other. But reality is, things are going to change. What people are thinking outside the box on technology, today, tomorrow is going to be common. It's going to be something that's natural with everybody. So I think we definitely have to not necessarily be on the cutting edge, but be open to understanding what new technologies are out there, how they could benefit your business or your organization, and being open to see if it could benefit you moving forward.
Definitely. And so, Leon, I'm curious then, we've talked a lot about how organizations can go through a digital transformation. You've given a lot of great information and nuggets. Could you share some of the common misconceptions about digital transformations that organizations should be aware of?
Right. I would say a common misconception is that every manual process will be automated. Sometimes that's not the case. And I'll say a lot of times that's not the case. Some processes need a manual touch, need a human interaction to be a decision maker, to um, move a process forward. Just because digital transformation, like you said, it's this big thing, but reality, it's small changes to improve efficiencies in your current processes. So whether that is through technology, whether that is through a new software, whether that is just automation, you you can't. Not every single thing will be automated, and technology will take its place. There just may be a better way of handling that process. Um, Say another misconception is that you have to go um, the technical route. Looking at your current processes, understanding how and why you do certain things is extremely important. That never stop learning is is key, because if there's a better way to do a manual process, then improving a manual process is still process improvement. So you can't be afraid to just say, hey, this was done this way. I didn't know why it was done this way. Here's a better way of doing it. Um, that that is an improvement that companies can make. And like I said, from the top down, you're going to find different tasks that if efficiency is improved on a million small scales, it can make a great impact.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a good reminder. And I love sharing this with my customers as well. Our customers is the importance of setting those success metrics, those KPIs, because, you know, I don't know, they say 75% fail, but how specific were they in what success looked like? And so if you're saying success is we migrate off the platform, then that's a success. Or a success, I think you shared before around, was it whether it's a survey or feedback that was given, is 80% of what we expect it to occur a success? And so I think it's really important that organizations truly define what success looks like and give themselves some wiggle room, because, thinking through my agile beliefs is, some improvement is better than no improvement. And so, those trade-offs of whether it's financial considerations, those gained efficiencies like you shared, but you need to have that marker. You need to know what it is that you're trying to achieve, so you know how
Mhm.
close you've gotten to that place.
I think that's very important when it comes to project planning and implementing large scale changes or even small scale changes. That first iteration is not going to be perfect. I think looking at an agile mindset, it's not just you know the development of or the implementation of it, but it's being able to change um, the way you think about the way you create the process, run the process. You brought up those surveys. It was looking at people's confidence levels, when they brought the idea to the team versus as they're getting engaged, as they're getting trained, what are those confidence levels? Do you feel like you have a full understanding? Is there transparency as a team um, being available for you? And then even throughout the entire project, constantly having those touch points to see where if we need to make a change. So we don't have to make a change after the project. With agile thinking, you can start making small changes throughout the project and constantly get better at how you're handling that and how you're working with the business. And then the next project and the following project, you're constantly making improvements. I don't think you're ever going to get, we're just working at 100% efficiency. Everyone's going to be perfect and happy and smiling at the end of it. It's just a constant small improvements that get you just a little bit better each and every time that you start implementing your strategies.
Yeah, I love it. This is awesome, Leon. Thank you. And one thing I want to follow up this question, and I want everyone in the audience to know there's a reason why I wanted Leon for this specific LinkedIn Live around digital transformation. I want for you to share everyone about your company that you founded. One thing I love about Connect Centric and what we do is we understand the whole person. All of our team members are not only exceptional at the work they do for Connect Centric, but they have a lot of amazing expertise in many other facets. And Leon started his own and developed his own mobile app. And so I would love for you to share more about that, what it is, what change it's making, and kind of the ideal client for your technology.
Thank you. Communication is extremely important. When it's a small group, it's easy to communicate. As groups and organizations grow, as their audiences grow, it becomes more of a challenge to reach out with communication to them. So organizations are forced to use multiple channels, whether it's email campaigns for newsletters, social media. Maybe they built a siloed platform themselves just for their audience, or they're using something like Slack or things like that for collaboration. Well, that only still reaches a fraction of your audience. And there's a lot of roadblocks, from algorithms to flooded inboxes, that can stifle that communication from reaching your audience. Well, that's where I come in with XCLUSV. The software I created is a mobile targeted broadcasting platform for organizations with large audiences. We increase the value add to your members. We help you drive revenue, and we do this by increasing your open rate of your communication by more than 50%. With this one-way broadcasting tool, it allows organizations to directly reach their audience, and their audience can curate content from multiple organizations that they're a part of, meaning that no more baby photos and random conversations. XCLUSV, you're curating important content from organizations that you want to receive information from, and they have the reassurance that you can easily access that communication.
Could you tell us, the audience, what would be one use case for XCLUSV?
Right. So a use case would be for organizations that have festivals or conferences or things like that. You have thousands of people gathered for a few days, a weekend, a week. But after that communication, after that event, communication dries up. Sometimes we download an app specifically for that event. We have that direct communication throughout the entire festivity. And then afterwards, people are deleting apps off their phone.
That's me. I do that. Yeah.
And we do it all the time. With XCLUSV, they become your audience, and you're able to extend that lifetime value of that attendee throughout the entire year for more direct communication. We allow you to create subgroups. So if I went to a tech conference and went to a UI session and a different session, I'm able to cater that communication to all the attendees and my marketing about UI throughout the year. And so that becomes a tool that they don't throw away because there's so much spam and there's so much noise, like there is on social media, but they know that they're only getting content from organizations and that they find value in that information, and they're able to easily access it. And it creates a pool for other organizations to even outreach. So if people have like-minded, they know I like UI, if they know I'm in tech, there might be other organizations that I might find on the platform that I can then follow and have that direct communication with. And I could take a social media break and still have complete access to these organizations.
Yeah, I love that. There was a conference I went to earlier this year or this quarter, and I went to a number of phenomenal sessions. And when I got on the plane, I deleted the app. And if I had something like XCLUSV, and after the session, I now get more information, or, hey, we have this upcoming webinar next week that further talks about AI or AWS, whatever that might look like. To your point, because my inbox is crazy. And so I miss out on a lot of stuff. So I think that's really awesome. So how can people interested learn more? Where can they go to learn more about XCLUSV?
Definitely. Well, we are currently preparing for our launch in Q1 of next year. So you can go to xclusv.app, and XCLUSV is XCLUSV.app. You can join the wait list. We're currently in our pilot, so we've been onboarding strategic organizations so we can get all the bugs out. But I'd love to sit down and discuss with your organization if it's a potential, but please sign up on our wait list on our website, and that's the best way to get a hold of us for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Leon, thank you so much for your expertise today. To everyone who tuned in, please, I know that this is not the last of it. Please feel free to send us any questions you might have. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere. Go to our website, send us a note if you have any other questions. We are here to answer any other questions. If you are starting a digital transformation journey or you're in the midst of it and just want a listening ear, a sounding board, please reach out. This is what we do and we love it. So we're here to help. Thank you again. And Leon, have a good rest of your day. And I'll be talking to you here, I'm sure, shortly. But thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.